Hello, welcome to Show Studio. It's time to start a new season of Head to Head. As usual, at the end of the fashion month, fashion marathon, we give you a summary of the shows of the cities, and today we're talking about London, and we are very lucky to have Stephen Jones with us. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Mimma. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for being here.
Delighted to be here.
So, London. Do you have any memories of it?
It seems like, you know,
it's a long time.
Fashion years are like dog years. So it feels like ages ago already.
Yeah, we just had a little chat about that to remind ourselves what we saw, and I really would like to start by talking about the two brands. Two, right? You worked on with.
So it was Matty Bovan.
So let's start with Matty Bovan, which, by the way, it's also in my highlights, my highlights list of the week. So Matty Bovan came out with a show that was very grown up for Matty. What is it? His fourth?
Yeah, I think it's his fourth show.
So second year. Yeah. So very, very young, very new still, going from strength to strength. The show was quite incredible because it was still Matty with all its originality, but a little bit more tailored, a little bit more clothes that you can imagine buying and wearing, actually.
Yeah, and it was a fantastic collage of colour and texture and these different things. For me, what's extraordinary is the week before I was working on Marc Jacobs in New York, and many of the girls, because of Katie Grant, who works with it, who were working on Marc Jacobs, then come over and do Matty's show. So there's this fantastic, extraordinary casting of probably the most important models in the business at the moment. So this gives it
strength,
a strength and an authority. Not to say that otherwise it wouldn't have, but boy, it really helps. Because then you have that sort of contemporary, Fran, who opened the show, was on the cover of Vogue, et cetera, et cetera.
I also think that it's not only the fact that those faces are recognizable even for civilians, and they add, you know, celebrity factor or whatever. I also think that girls with experience, they walk better. They have an attitude that gives strength, and this show had a lot of attitude. Yeah,
I mean, it's not only girls who have experience walk better, but they somehow walk like now. And, you know, is it the turn of a head or the way that one leg is put in front of the other? I don't know, but somehow they really encapsulate the moment. And that's how, you know, when you think of a 50s fashion shoot, it's not only the girl, it's not only the eyeliner, it's the gestures that they make as well, which makes it 50s. So when you're looking at this season, the nuances of how they hold themselves, the attitude that they give, really that's what makes them now.
That's nice. Yeah. That's nice. And what was the brief for you for the headpieces?
Well,
which are pretty amazing. Maybe we can see a detail of one of the hats. Yeah.
Well, in fact, there were a collaboration between Matty, Stuart Favors at Coach, and myself. Matty has had handbags and does handbags sometimes for Coach.
We saw them last season.
A collaboration. But
with
this
Coach.
time we decided to expand it into the hats, and it was using the Coach fabric that they use.
Oh, so those hats are for Coach?
No, they were for Matty, but they were using Coach fabric.
Okay.
And so that was an interesting way of working. I mean, I don't work with Coach, but I knew many, many years ago, he was a designer of handbags at Louis Vuitton. This is Stuart, was a designer of handbags at Louis Vuitton. So I know him from then with Marc. And so we sort of know each other. And when I came up with various ideas for this, and it was like, what are our favourite hats? So this particular hat, for example, was inspired by a trapper hat, but also inspired by some crazy Dutch hats that we saw. And
what is it made of?
It's fake fur.
Fake fur, yeah.
And this coated cotton that Coach used for handbags.
Does it have the Coach logo?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very discreet. It's sort of
okay.
coffee colours.
Okay.
But so anyway, we had all these different ideas of different ways to go for the hat silhouettes. And I said, but if we make them all in the same fabric, somehow that will unify the collection. And it's funny because that putting hats on girls is a way of unifying things. It's like putting the same lip colour on all the girls.
Okay, that
it
gives
makes it look like a collection. So say, for example, in Matty's show, it's very much about the difference between one outfit and the next outfit. But you have to have some consistency. You have to have something to glue the whole collection together, because when you're building a collection, you can't have it look too disparate.
So that comes, in this case, it comes from the hat.
And various other elements.
Yeah, that's great. There is one other hat that I would like to see, if I may. There's a very big one.
Big one. So anyway, the top hat, the top hat at the beginning, look number one on Fran. We considered that was the John Bull, and that absolutely referenced all the top hats that I've done in my career, and also the John Bull top hat that Vivienne Westwood did in about 1983.
Are we talking about this one?
No, the top hat.
Look number one.
Look number one.
Oh yeah, that one.
And there was the turban also as well on the other girl whose name I can't remember now, but she's a Muslim girl, so she can't show her hair, so we thought it'd be nice to do a turban. And then the other big loopy one, there's nothing new in fashion. And where did that come from? It came from a certain set of Dutch and German photographs from about 1880.
It's by far my favorite.
But also there was slight reference to the mentality of Balenciaga when he was designing and applying hats to outfits.
Mr. Cristobal Balenciaga.
Yeah, Mr. Balenciaga, Cristobal Balenciaga. And he often felt that hats were sort of almost like a stop on the top of the silhouette, that you might have this ballooning silhouette, but the hat somehow would work in a different way. So it would be almost like a full stop, or it would be a break in the silhouette. It was not flowing with the silhouette as Dior did at that time. It was in contrast to the rest of the silhouette. So that thinking was why I made that hat like that. Also, it was like a giant bow. And one thing that Katie always loves is a giant bow. Anything that you do in fashion is probably a combination of 25 different influences, even if you're doing a plain white
But by
t-shirt.
watching this collection and the hats in it, I feel you've been the freest, the most free, because there's so many different things. And then you say, rightly enough, the fabrics is the glue, but usually, and when we look at a Dior collection, it's one hat and one fabric and one material for every girl. While this, I really feel you were free to just bonkerly, a la Matty Bovan, produce and create.
Certainly, I have a freedom, whilst working with Matty, that an independence which is fairly unique. When anybody's doing collaboration with a designer, it's about very much working together. What's unusual about Matty is we have, he lives in Yorkshire, so we have a very intense meeting, and then it's up to me.
I like it, but I can see
it's just a different way of working.
But also, he's very young, and so probably also listens to you in a mentor-mentee way.
Yes.
He's got.
However,
Kathy, he's got you. He's got.
But he's got a very clear idea of how he wants to have. And if I show him something, he would be very polite. Not really. So sure about that.
Anyway, enough about Matty Bovan, because there was so much, and we don't have much time. Yeah. So we can have a word about Ryan Lowe, who's the other client of yours in London.
Big fluffy hats.
Big fluffy hats. Very interesting hats as well. So can we say a few words about that?
So he was inspired by a whole series of anime cartoon characters from Japan, from Korea, and from China. And this is what the hat silhouettes were based on. There's some which were very tall, which were almost like busbies. And we just developed them very much as silhouettes. Was there a story behind them? in a way, yes, a story was given to them, but it really came from the silhouette. For example, the horizontal feathers which go through the busby. I remember seeing photographs of pictures of Leslie Caron from that film. I can't remember.
I know, I can't help you, I'm
Heavens
sorry.
for Little Girls. Oh my God, and this is going out live too. And there was a horizontal feather. It was a costume designed by Cecil Beaton. So I'd always wanted to do something like that, and it seemed to work.
It's pretty interesting, yeah.
Yeah, but strangely enough, one thing which does unite Ryan and Matty is that Ryan also lives in Hong Kong most of the year. So it's this
very
strange
intense meeting, and then he disappears.
So there's a very intense meeting, and then I do my thing.
Yeah.
And then it all comes together a few days before the show.
I must say they're both very talented, but they're very, very lucky to have you, because
Thank you.
Those hats absolutely add something important.
Yeah. But that's a very specific area of fashion, and within so many different facets of British fashion, it's a tiny grain of sand in comparison to designers like, amazing collections from Christopher Kane, for example.
Yeah, that was, well, let's go to Christopher Kane.
Yeah.
I think Christopher Kane delivered the best collection in a few seasons. I mean, he's always been one of my favorite designers, and I always thought that he's one of the great designers that this country, coming from Scotland, but anyway, this country produced. And this collection was I think he's happier. I think he's happy again.
Being an independent, do you think being with Kering sort of held him back or something?
In a way, I felt, I haven't talked to him about this, so I don't know, but I felt this show, for me, is the return of the great Christopher Kane, with the latex and the volumes and the colors and the different shapes, and I thought it was just amazing.
Certainly, what it looks as though he's really enjoying himself. A certain clarity to the design, a certain sort of celebration. I mean, I loved the previous seasons. I love the photo prints and the different ways, but that was his few previous collections have been very much somehow a comment on life, as opposed to life itself. I don't know if I'm...
Interesting. No, I
but
see
there's
what you mean.
something which is celebratory about this.
But I also like about this, the celebratory aspect comes from the fact that I think he, in a way, quoted himself. He just... I don't know, if I had been parachuted on this land and in front of these models, I would have said Christopher Kane. Yeah. So I recognize his signature. It's
quite strange, actually, with design, quite often, that designers will say, oh, the collection is about blah, and the collection's about this thing, or it's a comment on something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But actually what the world wants out, and yes, I understand why that is, because it creates a framework within which they can advance every season or go to a different place. But actually what the world wants from them is their signature look.
Yeah, because
why
there's so
would
much
you choose
fashion Christopher Kane? Exactly.
If you didn't want his...
one can talk about the quality, one can talk about the glamour of the brand, whatever, but if you go to Christopher Kane, it's more a destination than something that you happen upon by chance, right?
Yeah.
And this, for me, he probably delivered the most desirable clothes I've seen in London. And talking about desirable clothes, I have to say Victoria Beckham show was a standout. She delivered clothes for women how they want to wear.
Yeah.
I mean, no, let me put it like this. Women, of a certain age, I hate saying that because you can be very young and look amazing in this, but I think it was very chic. It was very put together. It was very focused, great quality, amazing clothes, and I think Victoria Beckham is helping people that are still orphaned by Phoebe Philo.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what everybody said afterwards. And, friends of ours in the fashion business said that, yes, it was, at long last, the people who wearing Celine and were Phoebe's clients have got somewhere to go to now.
Yeah.
And whether they will do or not, because of course it's
certainly in London,
perception of Victoria Beckham as a label, but I mean she already has. It's a very successful business.
I think we passed that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read her interview in Lunch with the FT last weekend with Jo Ellison, very good interview, and she said, we've been through this thing, the Beckhams and etc., but we're hardworking and we're just a normal family, normal in the sense that they're family.
Oh yeah, just normal, and you're married to David Beckham. I don't think so.
I mean, but I think we have to. I think we have to go over the fact that she was posh and he's David Beckham. This is great fashion, and in a time where we were discussing before with the team, everything is made for Instagram. Everything is made to shock us and to make people talk. These are clothes that I want to buy and wear, and
certainly
we need that.
A simplicity and an elegance to them, and it looked totally assured.
Yeah,
totally assured, and sort of sexy when it needed to be sexy too.
I loved it.
And chic and great for the office in the way that pantsuit is.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, one thing that I have noticed is she's making a lot of clothes for the Duchess of Sussex now.
Is she?
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not known, is it? Do you have
Yes, it is.
internal?
No, it is, absolutely.
Anyway, that's one of my highlights, and one other highlights of mine also, because she made clothes for women, for real women, and very desirable clothes, was Simone Rocha. Simone is always one of my favorite, and it's one of the brands that I always want to talk about because I think she did a great job, and she continues delivering, season after season. But again, apart from probably the best casting of the season with women of size and age and provenance of difference, but these are clothes for real women.
Yeah.
And they have substance and they have a meaning, and we could go on and talking about, the reasons why Simone does this and what she's inspired by, but look at the clothes, they're amazing.
Yeah.
And they're desirable and they're wearable and they're sellable, and they're going to do...
I wonder if people are buying Victoria Beckham for day wear and Simone Rocha for evening wear, because they're sort of different sides of the same coin. I mean, obviously this is more decorative, it's more embellished, it's more feminine in a classic way of thinking about feminine.
Maybe a tad younger, maybe a little bit more modern for young girls. But then I'm not a young girl and I can wear that.
I don't think age. So interesting. That's Lily Nova, the model, who looks fantastic. But age and fashion is just sort of a mindset, and what it is supposed to be young and what's supposed to be older is just a point of view as well. For example, somebody who is 55 or 60 might want to wear sort of more frilly clothes, say, for example, Noir by Comme des Garçons, which has got sort of a decorative element. But in a way, yes, you would say that as younger, like Simone Rocha.
Yeah.
There's distinct similarities.
Yeah.
In another way that you could say, well, the simplicity of silhouette that Victoria Beckham has, is it older or is it younger? But is it more like sort of sportswear, casual thing? It's just...
Well, I think that what Victoria delivered was, if we can use the word, maybe more classic, but with a very modern and relevant styling, with some trendy twists, like the juxtaposition of colors, the longer collars of the shirts, the nerdy look of the cashmere inside the skirt. So all of that gave it incredible relevance and modernity, while this is obviously a designer who's redesigning fashion. Like, I would put in the same category probably Molly Goddard, it's
absolutely.
It's a new way, it's a new proposition of wearing clothes.
Yeah.
And I love both at the same way.
Yeah.
And I think, and then another one to mention was Molly, who delivered a fantastic show.
And certainly, I think what's so interesting, and has been the same way for quite a few years, is very modern takes on very traditional values. So, for example, a frill or a bow or something like that has existed for 500 years.
Yeah.
But when you do it when it's done by Simone Rocha or Molly Goddard or Rocha Kuba or many other designers, it becomes a very interesting point of balance. That yes, you can get away with having that level of femininity or sweetness, but done in a new way, it makes it acceptable for what we would call a modern woman. Because actually, if those dresses were made out of pink taffeta, it would probably be too much.
Yeah, exactly.
The fact that it's made out of black rubber.
These designers, they know what is modern. We had a chat with Simone backstage after this beautiful show, and it was very interesting. She was talking about the fact that we actually did a panel on this show, but she was talking about the fact that the last season, remember, she went to Hong Kong and she went to see the tombs of her ancestors in this cemetery that is for Buddhist, Christians, and everyone together. And she said it was very intimate. It was very about my family, my history. And this time I wanted to get more freedom and be free of all of that, and give women something for themselves and what they want. And I think for me, she wins casting of the year by far. It was very diverse in the real sense of the word. Moving on, J.W. Anderson. I want to mention J.W. Anderson because also, a little bit like Christopher Kane, for some reason, he had gone, forgive me because it's not really true, under the radar, but it wasn't the most talked about. And here in London, on his own collection, and also, since he did such an amazing, he keeps doing an amazing job at Loewe, then you feel like, is he really taking care of his own collection? And bam. This was a masterpiece of collection. I think also for J.W. Anderson, I want to say probably the best collection in a few seasons. And
this is always
starting with the best cape of the season. When
you're doing two jobs, it's very difficult to divide your time.
So hard.
I remember once, a few years ago, seeing, there was a film with him and he had his telephones, he had his own phone and his personal phone and his Loewe
phone.
And you start to get understand how many different areas which he has to work within. But I think they were great collections, and what was very unique in this was the placement of colours. For example, you see that grey dress with the pink on the edge and the dark blue.
Subtle and clever.
Yeah, and really, really inventive clothes that you had not seen before.
And exactly, and what I like here is that J.W. Anderson, who's a very clever man, knows that he needs to keep relevant in the ideas and in the pushing boundaries and moving forward, but yet he still needs to sell clothes. And what most of the young designers did this season, from London to Paris, they managed to do exactly that. So they deliver fashion that is desirable because it's new and original, but they deliver fashion that I can buy and wear, which sounds stupid, but it's rather important. And this collection, again, is proof of that.
Yeah, and it's
very desirable.
Glorious colour.
And very original and very J.W. Anderson.
Extraordinary authority in colour.
I will stop you there because I love these words of wisdom. I will see you in a few weeks when we discuss Paris together.
Yeah.
And for the time being, I thank you and I say goodbye.
Goodbye.